I've heard that the floor asked for shrubs to be put in the common areas.
Yeah,
no,
right.
We will not let this slide because, like, when you
obviously,
do that,
we'd put in some rocks too.
Oh, interesting. All rocks are my friends. I didn't know.
Citizens of the world, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's January 9th of the year 2023. We are live streaming on Rumble and on YouTube. If you have not subscribed already at rumble.com/Rubin Report, please go ahead and do that. And if you want to join us after the show for the post-game wrap-up, where I read comments, answer questions, I can be corrected if I make an error, all sorts of stuff, you can go to rubinreport.locals.com. The team is fired up and in a good mood today, I can tell. I feel we have a very, very tight show for you. And we're going to be talking about sanity versus the machine. The machine is just going to keep coming. The censorious nature of the machine, the lying, the BS, all of that stuff. It is not going to stop. I think if you watch this show, you get that. It is going to continue to come at us both culturally and politically through people that we should have gotten rid of a long time ago, whether they're CNN anchors or New York Times journalists or bureaucrats like Anthony Fauci. But there are some glimmers of hope. So you guys know I like my hope at the end of the show. We're going to get you to some hope. But before we do hope, I'm about to show you what I think might be the most unfunny thing in the history of the world. Okay? We've shown you unfunny things on this program. We've shown you video of Stephen Colbert before. We've shown you video of The Daily Show. We've shown you video of other late night programs trying to be funny. But Jimmy Fallon, who is the host of The Tonight Show, the once great Tonight Show, the Tonight Show of Jack Paar and Johnny Carson and Jay Leno. He is the host of The Tonight Show now, and he did a little song and dance because apparently there's a new COVID variant coming. And I saw this over the weekend on the Twitter, and I thought it's so horrific. It is so soul-crushing. It is so the exact perfect example of what these corporate sellout nothings push on all of us endlessly. That is the mainstream machine, that I have to share it with my audience, which is a little sadistic of me if you think about it. Jimmy Fallon.
There was Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron next, but this latest variant might be the best. It's XBB.1.5. Another brand of COVID-19 has arrived. It's a new strain, but it isn't the same. Sounds more like Elon Musk's his name. It's XBB.1.5.
How long do you think I can hold that face? All right. I know you didn't laugh at that, and I'm sorry we had to start the show with that. But that is a corporate channel, right? Meaning NBC, this is a giant corporation that puts on a show at, I think it's at 11:30 every night. The Tonight Show's been on for 70 years. I mean, it's really since the beginning of television, you know? And it was funny. It was meant really so people could go to bed with sort of a little bit of the news of the day, right? With a little bit of a monologue and maybe an interesting conversation. Actually, one of the things that I've been doing lately, and there's really nothing on television that I want to watch anymore because our cultural norms are so backwards. I watch old Johnny Carson Tonight shows. I've also been watching the old roasts. Remember the old roasts with Dean Martin? I've been watching a lot of those when comedy was actually funny and there was an irreverence and Hollywood actually was kind of cool. Something like that. But the reason that I'm showing you this video is you have to understand that all of the stuff that the machine gives us is a complete farce. Now, first off, there is this, what is it? XBB 1.5. Okay, it doesn't even matter. It just does not matter what this thing is. He talks about Alpha and Delta and Omicron. They stopped the world for about 2.5 years, and they'd love to stop the world again. And by the way, some masks are coming back in various blue states. We'll get to that in a little bit. But if they believed that this was so serious, that all of these people have died, and it was so horrific, and it was worth closing schools and ruining children's education and destroying the economy and making sure that grandma, as she was dying, couldn't be seen by her grandchildren, all of those things, do you think Jimmy Kimmel would be singing about it? Do you think he'd be singing about it? I had Phoenix check as that video was playing. Jimmy Kimmel has about 50 employees on the program, about 10 writers. So 10 writers came up with that, plus Jimmy himself, I suppose. And that's what they put out there. Pandering, nonsensical BS, like endless BS. But why would they do it? Why would they want you to be afraid of COVID again, right? Like, you survived the Alpha and the Delta and the Omicron. Why do they want you to be afraid of this thing? Why do they not want to let it go? Could it have something to do with money? Could it have something to do with sponsors? Would it be possible? I don't know. Maybe it's just Monday and I ate a lot over the weekend. I'm just thinking crazy things. You know what I mean? I was hanging out with the kids. You know, I'm seeing the world in a new way. Could it possibly be that giant corporations pay other giant corporations to promote their stuff, whether it's good for you or not? Could that possibly be? And could we even have videotape proving just that?
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer. On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
For the record, the Rubin Report is brought to you by this glass of water. I bought the glass at Target, and it's Florida Natural Tap. If you think Jimmy Fallon is horrible, and again, 50 people are paid, that show, it generates millions and millions of dollars for a giant corporation to keep you afraid, while it is paid by the very companies that are forcing you to be injected and stay home and all of that stuff. But if you think he's bad, at least he hasn't been in blackface as far as I know. Has Jimmy Fallon ever been in blackface? We know we got Jimmy Kimmel. He's always in blackface. But then there's this other guy, Stephen Colbert, right? And Stephen Colbert, because I know many of you were thinking about it because we showed it to you a while back and we're about to show it to you again. I'm just bludgeoning people this morning. Here's Stephen Colbert with his little dance number, because I guess legally if you're a sold out, and I mean sold out, S-O-L-D, and also S-O-U-L-E-D. If you're a sold out late night television host, you have to dance and sing about vaccines and debase yourself in front of the American public. Look at those clapping seals. What is going on? And this is comedy? This is comedy? And we all know damn well that if Donald Trump had been president still at that point when that originally aired and he was pushing for the vaccines at that point, that they would have all been against the vaccines, right? So, and now it's like, well, where are your dance numbers, Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert? Where are your dance numbers about all of the vaccine injuries? The people that are having heart problems, the young men that are dying in very, very bizarre rates. We'll get to that in just a moment. Nothing about that, because you guys always give the machine what it wants. And what the machine wants is people to be afraid. And as you guys know, politics is downstream of culture. And part of the tension that we're having right now is that fewer and fewer people are tuning into these things, right? Like I got 3 young people in this room. You guys are all in your mid 20s into your early 30s. You're an old veteran at this point, Connor, 30 years old. Does anyone you guys know watch The Tonight Show? Did the kids talk about The Tonight Show when you guys having your coffee in the morning or your Hot Pockets, or what are kids having? Hot Pockets. What are kids having? Pop-Tarts? Pop-Tarts. Daphne's looking at, I don't need a Hot Pocket. Anyway, the point is that they're losing control of the narrative, and that's why they're becoming more hysterical at the exact same time. That really is it, because people aren't watching that stuff. They're watching shows like this. People, or just outside, maybe taking walks, breathing fresh air. But mainstream culture and mainstream entertainment, they are collapsing by the minute, and the people who just feed the machine, they're becoming less useful to the machine. It's what I was always saying about Brian Stelter. Remember Brian Stelter? He was always saying the exact thing that the machine wanted. Donald Trump said, very fine people on both sides, Russia collusion, Brett Kavanaugh is a serial rapist. He was always giving it what it wants. And then at some point, the machine says, well, we don't need you anymore. You're just useless. And that's why he doesn't have a subscription thing or his own show anymore. He got a gig at Harvard, but that's just the machine protecting their own. Nobody actually cared about Brian Stelter, but he was part of the machine, so people talked about him. It's the same thing sort of in the way I'm framing this around Fallon and Colbert. But these people who give the machine what they want, it cannot end well for them. And that's what I was trying to discuss with Bill Maher a couple months ago. You may remember this. But isn't that crazy that you're right, that all the comics that were supposed to put everybody to bed or whatever it is, they all went bananas left. I mean, Colbert, these guys are terrible. Like Kimmel to me is just fucking, you may be friends with him. I know a lot of people
I love Jimmy.
Yeah, like he's
Colbert and I are not friends.
Yeah, like those guys to me, they're just the worst sort of partisan nonsense. You want everybody.
But the good part of that is we don't hide it. Like, he doesn't like me and I don't like him. And we don't deny it and we don't like it.
No, but he's nothing.
Colbert?
Yeah, he's nothing.
He's also very successful.
No, but he's just giving the machine what it wants all the time. For my differences with you, I totally respect you.
Is well said.
Yeah.
Giving the machine what it wants. I wish I had thought of that phraseology. That's exactly right.
I want to give Bill Maher a little credit here, because a week later on his show, and he was a little slow to it, but a week later after we had that conversation on his show, and we obviously talked about much more, and I even got him to say that if Cali brought lockdowns back and mandates and everything else, that he actually would move to Florida. That's a pretty big concession for the gold standard of liberalism in America. Here is Bill Maher on his show 1 week later, talking about the pandemic and our reaction and all the subsequent problems.
Now we're getting some information after a while. We have time to find out just how bad the collateral damage has been. Here's just a few cases. The pandemic erased 2 decades of progress in math and reading. See, right away I got to say, this pisses me off. I see these headlines all the time. The pandemic didn't do that. The way we handled the pandemic did that. The pandemic certainly was a thing. But let's not just say the pandemic, because it was not written in stone that we had to handle it the way we did. ACT scores are the lowest in 30 years. Anxiety and depression way up. The body mass index increase doubled for kids 2 to 19. Drug overdose deaths. Murders way up. Inflation at a 40-year high. Domestic violence increased. And my favorite, car crashes. They couldn't figure this out. Like way, way, way up. And finally, I love this. This is the expert said, you know what it is? People just went fucking mental. They just went nuts. They're like, I'm home. The fucking kids are here all the time. My stupid husband is here all the time. I'm just going to take it out on the highway. And they did.
So that is good, right? It's good when people, and I know a lot of you, and I when I talk about Bill Maher, I always get a lot of comments. People are like, why are you still talking about him? He's never going to get there. He voted for all Democrats last time around. But if someone like him talking about some of this stuff, getting to the truth, better late than never, right? Because he's supporting, as far as I can tell, he's supporting still a guy like Gavin Newsom, who is still for all of these things, or at least did all of these things in the past, right? But him talking about it, waking up some people is good. But I want to bring this back to the machine, because there are people who have been around forever that basically threw away all of their ideals in the middle of this. Over the weekend, I was watching Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Running Man. The movie Running Man is probably 1986. We could check on that, something like that. And at the beginning of the movie, they have like a Star Wars style blurb, and it takes place in 2017, but it's 40 some odd years ago, talking about a dystopian future where the government censors everybody and free speech is under attack, and they arrest people and all of these things for going against the system, for caring about freedom. And I was watching it, and I was like, and it's one of my favorite movies, by the way, those 80s Schwarzenegger movies. It's 87, actually. Like, they're Total Recall. I love all of those movies, Terminator, everything else. But I was watching it, and I was like, wait a minute. So that's what Schwarzenegger was doing, these cool sci-fi movies about watching out for the man, making sure that the machine didn't get you back in 1987. How is he back in August of 2021?
But I think people should know there is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom, because with freedom comes obligations and responsibility.
Screw your freedom. From the guy that was like the 80s, 90s action superstar, every movie fighting for freedom. That was the, I suppose, fictitious caricature or character of Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you have to get vaxxed, you have to social distance, you have to wear masks. None of it worked. None of it worked. It was all illegitimate. It was all pushed on us by this machine that just wants more and more of our freedoms. And it's going to keep coming. Now you'll see why I'm telling you I'm showing you some of these old clips. Why am I showing you these old clips? Because speaking of screw your freedom, here is Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates, as you know, created Microsoft in the 80s. I always like to talk about Microsoft Paint. You could click a button, you could fill up a thing, you could do that little, there was like one that was like a cloud, sort of, you could paint in like a cloud formation. Remember that? It was very, very exciting. It also had tons of, viruses. That's right. Microsoft brought your PC home right in your house. You could have a computer there, and then you'd get pop-ups and viruses all day. It's very interesting that a guy who created the operating software for our computers, and then viruses were getting in, and now he's very concerned about the viruses that are hitting our bodies. Over the last couple of days, he was on Al Jazeera, which is state-sponsored Qatari news. He was over there talking about global surveillance and the next pandemic, which is coming. And oh, don't worry, guys, they've got better mRNA vaccines, and they're going to be injecting you with them too.
Why and how ready should we be for the next pandemic?
Well, governments are there to protect us. And so, they have us practice for earthquakes. They have a fire department with lots of full-time people to stop fires. They have armies that are there to deal with wars. But the pandemic is a disaster that they didn't prepare for. The actual resources required to have a global surveillance team to make better diagnostic technologies. There's some good innovation. The idea of improving the vaccines so that they block getting infection, making them so they last a long, long time.
It's amazing. They're thinking about making a vaccine that will block infection. They're going to get the scientists on it, they're going to cancel lunch, and they're going to have a vaccine that vaccinates. That's what these people are up to. Man, he is like the devil incarnate. He is also, as you guys know, we've mentioned it many times, he is also the largest farmland owner in the United States, while he is pushing for you people to eat bug slime out of a bucket while you're locked in Zuckerberg's metaverse over there and with some weird electronic things snapped to your nuts. I'll explain that tomorrow, maybe a little further. Anyway, the whole thing is insane, right? These people are just absolutely awful. Also, that line that he started with, the government is there to protect you. What's the line from Reagan, right? The scariest 9 words in the English language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. My God, it's all happening right in front of our eyes. But speaking in front of our eyes, Anthony Fauci, who lied about everything across the board, where the vaccine came from too, but where the virus came from, where the vaccine came from, masks. He lied about absolutely everything. As you know, he has now stepped away, so I suppose he's now just a private citizen. He's not Lord Fauci anymore. But he's still doing the media rounds, and he talked about, or he was asked about, the possible vaccine injury of Damar Hamlin, who of course is the football player that passed out on the field last week. And, you know, a lot of people were saying this seems like it is probably vaccine injury related because 95% of NFL players were vaccinated. We're hearing all of this stuff about vaccine injuries and heart problems and myocarditis and much more. So Fauci was asked about that.
Dr. Fauci, I don't know if you saw it, but on Monday Night Football this week, Damar Hamlin, a player for the Buffalo Bills, collapsed on the field. You're not an NFL expert, and you're not an expert on any cardiovascular issues the player might have had. But what I want to ask you about, Dr. Fauci, is, as I want to do in moments like that, I kept an eye on Twitter. And I can't tell you exactly how many minutes transpired, but it was less than 20 before people on Twitter began to say, well, clearly the vaccine caused his seizure.
What that means, Major, is that yet again another conspiracy theory, complete nonsense, is going to have some people make a decision for themselves and their family not to get vaccinated, which may cost them their lives.
As you well know, Dr. Fauci, there is some shred of evidence myocarditis was related to vaccines. It is a heart issue. I'm not a doctor. You are. That's a shred of evidence.
A very small shred, right.
And explain how then this can get conflated.
Of course. In a very, very rare case, some of the mRNA vaccines can cause a self-limiting, almost invariably benign, inflammatory response in the heart, which generally resolves in a very short period of time. It is very, very rare.
It's very, very rare. Is that right? These heart problems, it's very, very rare, because you guys may remember about a month and a half ago, right before Elon Musk got Twitter, our Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, was censored on Twitter because he tweeted about a published report that they did related to young men and vaccine injuries, specifically about the heart. Here's the tweet. Today, we released an analysis on COVID-19 mRNA vaccines the public needs to be aware of. This analysis showed an increased risk of cardiac-related death among men 18 to 39. Florida will not be silent on the truth. Just FYI, guys, in the paper that he linked to that was then censored and then uncensored finally, there was an 84% increase in heart issues among young men 18 to 39. Do you think that there might be a connection there? But he dismisses that. Right? He not only dismisses it, but if you even talk about it, you're a conspiracy theorist. And what's his name? Who's the interviewer there? Is that Major Garrett? Who is that guy? The way he frames everything, like, you're the good guy, Fauci. I'm not a doctor. I'm just the average moron. Can you explain everything to me, please? But speaking of vaccines and mandates and masks and young people, we knew it was coming. And then I saw this morning. Masks are coming back. From mlive.com, it's michiganlive.com news. Masks will now be required while indoors in Ann Arbor public schools from January 9th to January 20th for all students, staff, and visitors in order to combat a surge of illnesses as students return from break. Yes, it is happening right now. And I would say to the people of Michigan, well, not if you're someone watching this and you're from Michigan, because then I have sympathy with you, but I think you should go. But everyone else, you voted for Gretchen Whitmer again. You did. You brought back the same governor who was one of the worst. You know, you got your Newsom, you got your Kathy Hochul, you got your Gretchen Whitmer, the trifecta of evil related to COVID, but you guys re-elected. I was gonna say the B word. I'll try. It's Monday. You re-elected that witch. That was good. You re-elected that witch, and that's what you get. Here's Whitmer back in September of 2020. And listen to her when she's talking about Bill Barr, who was against these crazy federal lockdowns and everything else.
So you issued stay-at-home orders early in the pandemic, and you have not ruled out issuing them again if there's a big jump there. The Attorney General Bill Barr spoke out about that sort of order today. Here's what he said.
You know, putting a national lockdown, stay-at-home orders is like house arrest. It's you know, other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history.
Greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history. What do you make of the comparison to slavery?
I mean, I just think the Attorney General is unhinged, and it is deeply disturbing that our chief law enforcement officer is promulgating this kind of craziness. The fact of the matter is, the worst thing that we can do for another American is to give them a virus that could kill them. That's the biggest violation of our civil rights, is an administration and a government that is undermining our ability to protect ourselves and our lives and our livelihoods.
First off, he did not compare it to slavery, right? He did not compare it to slavery. He was saying slavery was that. This is something else altogether. Okay, that's number one. Putting that aside for a moment, she's evil. She's evil, but the people of Michigan voted her in. So they signaled to the evil woman, can you do more evil to us? And that's why it will come back in New York and it will come back in Cali. I have great sympathy for any of you watching this, that you're there and in Michigan, or your kids are at an Ann Arbor school and you don't want them in this. It's up to you right now. It is up to you to either take your kid out of school or start homeschooling or leave the state. Take your family and your skills and your resources and your goodness and your sense of community and pride and belief in American exceptionalism, whatever it might be, and move to a freer place and strengthen these places, because these people will not stop, because they have been given the signal via elections that people want more and more. And speaking of a guy who will gladly bring all of the evil back, Gavin Newsom was inaugurated last week because he got reelected too. And a protester, a guy by the name of Joshua Coleman, he's at Josh Bucky on the Twitter. He was almost arrested for peacefully protesting. This video, and this is just another perfect example of, you're never going to see this on mainstream media, but you really should. So he peacefully protests, you're going to see, and then watch what happens as the police chase him down after. And he just does an absolutely great job of how you should deal with true, not perceived, but true injustice.
We're going to help you down. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Out of here.
Always got to be a punk and
right. Always one idiot.
I mean, am I under arrest? Did I commit a crime? Did I commit a crime? Well, I don't think I need to say my name unless I've committed a crime or if I'm being charged with a crime. You're saying I'm being detained. What crime did I commit? What crime did I commit? Am I free to go?
Do you mind hanging tight for us?
I would rather go. Am I free to go?
You're free to go.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you guys. I really do.
That's how you deal with this. Now, look, I don't want to make this about that police officer, but whoever told that police officer that they should detain this guy should be fired immediately. I get it. It's California. No one will get fired. Whoever actually did it will probably be chief of police, if not governor, within the next 4 years. But you see what they did there? They detained him. They're asking him his name. They didn't know why they did it. Do I have to stay here? Well, we'd appreciate if you just stand here. What? This is banana republic level shit. But whether it's happening in Michigan or it's happening in California, it is going to continue. So if you live there, good luck with all of that. That really is where we're at on all of this stuff. And the more that we expose it, the more they'll double down on it, because they're so deep in the muck and the mire that they can't come out of it now. You know what I mean? They can't crawl out of the pit of Sarlacc and be like, boy, I really did screw up that whole thing. So there is just more and more information coming out on how the government coordinated to silence people related to COVID. So a journalist by the name of David Zweig, he had a really long, extensive Twitter thread on what's going on here with the government and big tech. I'm going to just read you portions of it. It was like a 30 tweet long thread. So we just picked some of the highlights here. The Twitter files, how Twitter rigged the COVID debate. Here we go. By censoring info that was true but inconvenient to U.S. policy. So here are the highlights. First, by discrediting doctors and other experts who disagreed, by suppressing ordinary users, including some sharing the CDC's own data. The United States government pressured Twitter and other social media platforms to elevate certain content and suppress other content about COVID-19. It wasn't just Twitter. The meetings with the Trump White House were also attended by Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and others. So let's just be clear, this was the Trump White House too. When the Biden administration took over, one of their first meeting requests with Twitter executives was on COVID. The focus was on anti-vaxxer accounts, especially Alex Berenson. In the summer of 2021, President Biden said social media companies were killing people for allowing vaccine misinformation. Berenson was suspended hours after Biden's comments and kicked off the platform the following month. But Twitter did suppress views, many from doctors and scientific experts, that conflicted with the official positions of the White House. As a result, legitimate findings and questions that would have expanded the public debate went missing. Inevitably, dissent, yet legitimate content, was labeled as misinformation, and the accounts of doctors and others were suspended both for tweeting opinions and demonstrably true information. Exhibit A, Dr. Martin Kulldorff, an epidemiologist at Harvard Medical School, tweeted views at odds with U.S. public health authorities and the American left, the political affiliation of nearly the entire staff at Twitter. No, thinking that everyone must be vaccinated is as scientifically flawed as thinking that nobody should. COVID vaccines are important for older high-risk people and their caretakers. Those with prior natural infection do not need it, nor children. Internal emails show an intent to action by a moderator saying Kulldorff's tweet violated the company's COVID-19 misinformation policy and claimed he shared false information. After Twitter took action, Kulldorff's tweet was slapped with a misleading label and all replies and likes were shut off, throttling the tweet's ability to be seen and shared by many people, the ostensible core function of the platform. Okay, then, of course, what you know, the post-mortem of this is that Elon Musk eventually buys Twitter. Alex Berenson is back on Twitter. Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. Peter McCullough are back on Twitter. He is systematically right now, Elon Musk, getting rid of the content moderation teams at Twitter. He fired a whole bunch more people just this past weekend who were in charge of silencing people. But the fact is, you really just need to know this, guys. It kind of sucks to know because it puts us in one of those dystopian Schwarzenegger movies from the 80s. The government, without question, was pressuring social media companies to silence you, outsourcing the tyranny. They knew they couldn't show up to your house, right? They couldn't send a government agent to your house to say, stop saying that, because it would have been too much of an obvious violation of your First Amendment. So what did they do? Through emails and other pressure, they made sure that these largely lefty, so they were in line with them when it came to COVID, these largely lefty employees of Twitter would go ahead and do the silencing themselves. But it gets even worse because this really goes all the way up to the White House, and it really goes all the way up to the elderly man pretending to be President Joe Biden himself. Here's some info from the Daily Caller. The White House pressed Facebook to censor Fox News host Tucker Carlson for saying vaccines don't work, according to a document released by Republican Attorney General Jeff Landry of Louisiana. Since we've been on the phone, the top post about vaccines today is Tucker Carlson saying they don't work. Yesterday, it was Tomi Lahren saying she won't take one. White House Director of Digital Strategy, Rob Flaherty, reportedly said in an April 14th, 2021 email to an unidentified Facebook employee, which was posted on Twitter by Landry. You guys get this. It isn't that the government came to all of the big tech people and said, we are going to arrest you if you don't silence these people. But by having these email exchanges with them, by saying, you know, the number one tweet, if you call up a Twitter employee, you know, the number one tweet is Tucker Carlson saying vaccines don't work. The number two tweet is Tomi Lahren saying she's not going to take vaccines. Well, Tucker basically turned out to be right, and Tomi Lahren has every right not to take vaccines, just like you and just like me. Reminder, I had COVID about 2.5 weeks ago. I was out playing basketball the same day. I'm not vaxxed. Half the rest of my family had it, some younger, some older. They were all sick. So either I should be studied, maybe Fauci would love to study me. Fauci would love to put me in that thing where they lock you down like the dog, and then they put your head and then they let the flesh-eating things eat your face off. No, Fauci, you can't have me. All of this is to say, because I know you guys get it, right? You get that this thing is happening. So what's the chance? What's the chance that we have? Well, believe it or not, the Republicans now control the House, okay? So we didn't get the red wave, but the Republicans got the House. And Kevin McCarthy, after 15 freaking votes, he is finally, here's the numbers, we got the numbers for you. As of 2 days ago, Kevin McCarthy got 216 votes. He is now the House Majority Leader. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat, who's a complete nutbag, got 212. Okay, a couple others got 0 and present, fine. Here's video of Kevin McCarthy winning the vote.
Therefore, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Okay, so what's interesting about this, so he gets in finally after 15 votes. They fought it out for a couple days. What's really interesting about this is Trump was backing McCarthy the whole time. The group of 20 who were against McCarthy, they're thought of as the most Trump Republicans that there are. So this is Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Chip Roy, meaning these are the guys that are thought of as the Trumpians. So you have Trump backing McCarthy, and then the 20 guys going against McCarthy are all thought of as Trump supporters. So this is some really interesting political dynamics here. I said last week, you can check the videotape on this. It's good to have a little fighting. Who cares if we don't have a leader for a couple days? Who cares if we don't have a government for a couple weeks? It would be a freaking pleasure, if you ask me. Well, one of the guys that was holding out was Chip Roy from Texas. Here he is on CNN with Democrat activist Jake Tapper explaining that, yeah, you know what? Some fighting about this stuff is actually pretty good.
Well, first of all, let's remember that a little temporary conflict is necessary in this town in order to stop this town from rolling over the American people. I don't think anybody on either side of the aisle could say with a straight face that they think that Washington is doing good work for the American people on a regular basis and isn't broken. We have to work to fix this place. And look, some of the tensions you saw on display when we saw some of the the interactions there between Mike Rogers and Matt Gaetz, some of that is we need a little of that. We need a little of this sort of breaking the glass in order to get us to the table, in order to fight for the American people and to change the way this place is dysfunctional.
Yeah, that's right. So guess what? Those 20 Republicans who fought, they got some concessions out of McCarthy. And you know what McCarthy's first thing that he's going to do now that he's House Majority Leader? You know what the Republicans are going to do? It's actually pretty beautiful. He already announced it.
I know the night is late, but when we come back, our very first bill will repeal the funding for 87,000 new hours.
Maybe this is the chance, right? What do I always say? You don't have to be a Republican, but you cannot be a Democrat, and the Republicans will probably fail you. I still believe they will probably fail us, but there is a chance here. Like, that's a great moment. The guy comes in, right? The first thing he says, we are going to get rid of 87,000 new IRS agents. That's what these lunatic Democrats were putting forth that they want to make sure they can find all of your money, right? They can always find enough money to give to Ukraine, another $40 billion in that bananas $1.7 trillion spending. But they want to just find out how much money you sent to your aunt on PayPal. 87,000 agents to look into you. They take your money to pay people to look into your finances, and you applaud it. Not you, them. Okay, so it's a good start. So what else can you do, McCarthy? And I'll hopefully sit down with him and discuss this. You know what? Go after Fauci. Go after Twitter. Go after this administration. If this is your opportunity right now, right? I'm talking to you, Kevin McCarthy. This is your opportunity. These 20, most of them came around and did end up voting for you. You've got a little juice right now. If we do not have free speech in the United States, we have nothing else. We know that the administration pressured Twitter to take down tweets and to silence Tucker Carlson. That is a violation of the First Amendment. Someone in the White House has to be fired. And you know what? I bet you could figure out an argument that it goes all the way to the top. In the email, actually, that that they released, they talk about how Biden, like this is important to Biden, that this information that Tucker talking about vaccines, that it doesn't get out there. So it could go all the way to the top. It really could, guys. So that is what the chance is. Republicans, I know you'll fail us. I'm not sitting here with rosy glasses. I know you'll fail us. I don't know why you'll fail us exactly, but you guys tend to suck too. You're a little bit better, but you suck in your own way. And by the way, I mean this, of course, at the federal level. What we're running here in Florida is the most perfect, happens to be a Republican operation that's being run perfectly. So I'm talking about this obviously at the federal level, but there's a chance. Get rid of the IRS agents, figure out what's going on with free speech. Let's find out who was doing what related to January 6th and this Ray Epps guy. Like there's so many things we can actually unfurl and get back to something more honest. I know I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Ladies and gentlemen, because it is Monday, it is Meme Monday over at the Rubin Report Locals community. Here's the one I put up this morning. The third leech isn't working? Better give him another booster leech. You think history repeats itself, people? Yeah, it does. That's right, it does. Okay, we are going to continue with the post-game wrap-up show. If I made any mistakes, if you have any thoughts on what I said, any comments, any questions, any queries, you can let me know right now. We are going to keep the post-game show available for everybody. Just jump over to rubinreport.locals.com. I believe the link to the specific post is right down below. We're going to keep it open for everybody for one more week. This will be the last week we're keeping it open for everybody, and then it will be for subscribers only. Subscribers are the only ones that can comment directly, but for now you can at least watch. It's $5 a month, or you get a couple months free if you join us annually, and you help keep this show independent. As you know, we are fully independent. Rumble, us, we're doing it, people. This is the future. Part one of my interview, by the way. Oh, and you really want to check this one out with Tulsi Gabbard. We talk about all of this stuff. I taped it on Friday. Part one is up today. The full thing will be up on Locals today, absolutely ad-free, and we get into all the censorship stuff. And I ask her, you know, a lot of you guys who like Tulsi Gabbard, you're more on the right, but you like her, and she obviously left the Democrat Party. But one of the things that I see about her often is people are wary of her Second Amendment stance. I ask her directly about that and a bunch more, so you're going to want to check that out. We leave you with a cold close, and I will see the Locals people in about 42 seconds.
You dreamt of Dracula, you said? While we're on this sort of stuff, you heard of the Pied Piper? Well, in my dream, Pied Piper had toilet paper, one sheet of the cheap kind.
Yes.
And he took that and he ripped out a creme brulee and a little tiny pepper.
Yes.
Before he ate a tree. You didn't have that dream.
Yes, I did.
Okay, nope. Okay, you did not. Don't tell me you did. It's not true. You didn't never get to dream of the Pied Piper eating a tree. I mean, you're telling me you dreamed that too. Then it wasn't as cool as my dream.